All right, for lesson 8.3, we're going to talk about line and angle relationships. So we've talked about lines, and we've talked about angles, and now we're going to talk about how they are related. So open up your books to page 322, and the first thing you're going to do is you're going to write down the definitions of these three types of lines. Perpendicular lines, which are lines that measure 90 degrees when they intersect. So perpendicular. So intersect at a 90-degree angle. They look like this. Okay, on the same plane, and they intersect at a 90-degree angle. Next one is parallel lines. Parallel lines never intersect. But they still fall on the same plane. So, on the same plane, but they never touch each other. Now, the last one is skew lines. Skew lines also never intersect. But are on different planes. These are harder to draw on a two-dimensional surface. So if you look at your book, they have a picture of two lines that never intersect, but are on different. They're on different planes. So they're not necessarily parallel. They just do not run along the same plane. All right. So the first thing they're going to show us is identifying. So we have a little box. I'll do my best to draw a 3D box. So he's not perfect. But here's our 3D box. Anyway, you get the idea. 3D box. And we have this labeled. This is A, B, C, D, and E. All right, so they want to know A, B, and AC. So here's AB, here's AC. Let's identify them. They are going to be perpendicular. So you would write this as such. AB, so line AB is perpendicular to line AC. This is your sign for perpendicular. Okay? Now, the next one they have is CE and BD. So here is CE, it goes this way, and BD goes this way. Those are skew. They're not ever going to touch each other, but they're also not on the same plane. So you would write that as CE and BD are skew. You have to write that out. Okay, there is no symbol for skewed lines. And the last one is going to be AC. So line AC and BD. This is your symbol for parallel. So they are parallel. They run next to each other on the same plane but will never touch. Okay? And these are your symbols. Parallel, perpendicular. You have to write out skew. Okay. The next thing you have is some definitions of angles. So, adjacent angles. I'm going to switch markers because this one is dying. Let's try this one. So, adjacent angles. And they have a common vertex and a common side, but no common interior points. So, adjacent angles formed by two intersecting lines are supplementary. So if you have this line and this line, these angles 2 and 3 are going to equal 180 degrees. Okay? They have a common vertex and they share a side. And together they make 180 degrees, which makes them supplementary. Okay? The next one is vertical angles. Vertical angles are opposite angles formed by two intersecting lines. So if you have two lines like this, your vertical angles are going to be, if we label the rest of this 2, 4, they're going to be 1 and 3. They also are congruent. Okay? So vertical angles, like opposite of each other, and they are congruent, meaning they have the same measure. All right, a transversal angle is a line that intersects two or more lines. So you have two lines, transversal. So you have two lines and a line that goes through both of them. Now, this angle and this angle is called your alternate interior angles. Okay? Alternate interior. They're both inside, alternate. Now your alternate external angles is sort of the same thing. External, alternate. Now your corresponding angles are going to be this and this. See? They're like the same. Corresponding. And in the underneath this in your book, there says properties of transversals to parallel lines. Please pause the video and write those notes down. So, if two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, corresponding angles are congruent. Alternate interior angles are congruent, and alternate exteriors are congruent. Please write those notes down. You will need to remember that for your homework. Okay. One last little example, and then you can get started on your work. So they have in your book on page 323 a transversal line. And it says that line P and N are parallel. Okay? Now a transversal line goes through parallel lines. So that's sort of a given, but they tell you that anyway. And they say that the measure of angle 6 is 55 degrees. Why? So we know this because the vertical angle is also 55 degrees. we would then look at this and know that angle 1 is 55 degrees. Okay, so look through example 2 because that's going to be important for finding answers in your homework. So you're going to do some identifying, but then you're also going to need to apply these rules to an example in the book. So for your assignment, you will need to do 1 through 22 all. So 1 through 22 all. All right, if you don't have any questions, you can get started. Otherwise, raise your hand and I can come and help you.